Yeah, for me, I mean, for most people it would be the nice weather and so on. I prefer colder weather, but I come nevertheless because last year there was a very interesting mix of presentations of more theoretical, abstract, academic even, and very practical, down to earth, and everything in between, and a very high quality of the presentations. So yes, I definitely wanted to come back. There are many. I'll just highlight the one from Camille Fournier. Tomorrow. I'm very much looking forward to hearing that one. Well, it has been in Akka since 2.40 as an experimental module. That's how we have always done it. We introduce new features with a marker that basically says the API can still evolve. And that is still true. Akka typed has been there and the principles have stayed the same basically since then. But the way you write these actors has been refined, especially in the past month when the core team finally got a chance to look at it. Prior to that it was basically mostly me, but one person doesn't make a good API. So now we're converging on a nice way, and it will be final in, I don't know, a few weeks probably. I'm doing that as a hobby nowadays. I'm no longer at Lightbend. I'm running my own company as a co-founder and have lots to do with IT for the manufacturing industry, which is a completely different field. So I'm doing Akka typed mostly as something like a hobby, if you will, in my copious spare time. And yeah, well, I mean, if people use it and they tell me, I'm glad. But there's a lot of unknowns because not many people are forthcoming. I'm in contact with a few. It would be nice to see more feedback so that we can evaluate what people like and what they don't like. That's very much needed to get a good product out there. I have been part of the finalization of the Akka typed part itself, of basically the core, if you will. But then I shifted my focus onto what I talked about here, which is this Akka typed session project. It's not part of the Akka repository because it's even more experimental. It's inspired by research that's currently going on in the distributed systems community, where these session types and their applications to practical problems and so on are evaluated. And this is not a solved problem. This is fresh research, and this is why it will probably take a while before we can declare that to be final. Yeah, that's picking up speed. I mean, it has really gotten up to speed a few years ago already. Tools are still appearing because this is a very young field in this fashion. But Akka has been about that all along. This actor model implementation has been a foundation for many systems to be built in this resilient and elastic fashion, purely message driven and so on. It has proven over and over again that it is the right approach. The point with Akka typed is that the previous version was, due to, I mean, practical reasons, making the simplest thing work first, it doesn't have type safety. And type safety in distributed systems is also extremely difficult to come by. This is why the untyped implementation, while very successful, is one that I wanted to improve upon. Yeah? We have the tools from the model already, but you probably also mean other tools, like you need to monitor your systems, you need to check that everything stays running, or for resilience sometimes you need watchdogs and restarts and failure and failover mechanisms, detecting when an AWS service like S3 is down, for example. I mean, not many people are good at handling that, I suppose. So we're still learning, but this is a very active field. So I think good things are emerging, and we learn more every day how to tackle these problems. What we see now with the Internet of Things is that it becomes practical to monitor many more things. Everybody is having something on their wrist to track their activities, and their home is fully bugged, I would say. And so we have lots of sensors that are now popping up because it's so cheap, essentially. Those are examples where I'm not certain whether they are really necessary. But if you look into farming, for example, there are large advances that are made by monitoring in a very detailed fashion the temperature, moisture, and so on of the ground, the fertility, and then determining precisely how much of which chemicals you need to put on the ground to make the plants grow in order to not waste and not pollute more than you need to, and so on. So there are lots of good things to be had due to this development, that these sensors become cheaper, more reliable, more durable. I mean, I'm thinking of new energy sources that are popping up, sensors that can power themselves just by means of capturing light radio frequencies, or so. Yeah, I mean, interesting times. If you have something that's safety critical and that must react in a certain time frame, then the shorter the time frame, or the more severe a failure, the closer it needs to be to the machine, for example, that it's supposed to control. And then at some point you cannot really talk of a distributed system anymore. Because if you have something that's really critical, like it must shut down this drill, for example, well, because a life is at stake, right? That can't be a computer in the cloud. There are also changes done in cars in terms of making these networks that we have more deterministic in terms of latency and package non-loss, so successful delivery. If I need to push the brake, well, it should better react, right? So there are some systems where we don't trust it quite yet, but I mean, this will change once we are more certain of what we are doing with the network technology. And then, yes, I mean, a car already is a distributed system, and it will become more so, you're right.